A while back I made a video about the brilliant practical design of ancient amphora with the tapered or pointed bases, but people were still curious about how they were actually made, so by the end of this video you will understand every step. How ancient amphora were made, how they were treated and sealed to hold liquid, and why that shape actually made shipping goods overseas more practical and efficient. First, let's briefly cover the purposes and benefits of this seemingly peculiar design. Imagine you were a merchant 2,000 years ago. You're aboard a Roman ship crossing the Tyrrhenian Sea. Your cargo is worth a fortune. Fine wines from Italy, olive oils from Hispania, and pungent fish sauce from North Africa. But when traversing open waters, every wave, every tilt of the ship threatens to break your cargo or leak your profits into the sea. This was obviously a great concern for ancient seafaring merchants, but the design of amphora with a pointed base had numerous practical benefits. People often ask why they weren't all made with flat bases, but when stacking vessels with flat bases together for shipping, they don't stack neatly together with a flat base. Introducing tapered bottom vessels allowed them to stack much neater together as they could nest into each other, slotting into the gaps between the stacked vessels on highly loaded ships. As the tapered base gave extra storage room at the bottom which would occupy the space that would be empty with flat bottom vessels, this enables the pointed base design to increase the cargo density, so this design also helped optimize cargo space and logistics. Merchant ships often carried well over 1,000 amphorae. The largest find from one shipwreck is over 6,000 amphorae, known as the Fiscado shipwreck, so these were like mini cargo ships in ancient times. And then there's stability. A pointed base allows the vessel to be wedged into the sand of a seabed, tucked into the uneven floor of a ship's hold, or into purpose-built wooden racks. They stay put much more reliably than flat-bottom vessels. Obviously, the tapered bottom doesn't create a hard edge like a flat-bottomed vessel. The curved shape of the entire body has a far lower chance of bumping into an edge that could break the amphora, leading to less breakages and waste. The tapered base also promotes natural fermentation, and the point gives a natural place for sediment to settle when at rest, which can obviously be beneficial for wines and oils with natural sediment. The tapered bottom also allows it to be stored easily buried into the sand or earth or other loose ground material. Storing amphora buried in the ground can also help regulate the temperature to keep it more consistent throughout the day and night, even keeping the contents a bit cooler than the outside air temperature, which is even more effective if stored in an underground room like a basement or a wine cellar. Same sort of purpose. The more stable the temperature is, the more suitable for long-term storage or fermentation it is. The shape of the amphora with a pointed base also makes it easier to pour liquid out of, as the pointed base also acts more like a handle for easier pouring. Now let's have a look into how these amphora were actually made. Now the potter's wheel has been around for over 5,000 years, so the Romans were very familiar with throwing clay on a wheel, as that was old tech by then. Well, to be fair, that was ancient tech by then. These pointed based amphora would be made how most pottery starts, with a slab of clay on a spinning wheel. The main body and the neck would often be neatly thrown on a wheel to the required shape. When the body and the neck are done, the handles are often usually moulded on first before the base is added. Smaller amphora can be turned upside down and continue to be shaped on the wheel. Medium-sized jars will need a bit of support around the neck, but usually some clay is enough. Then medium to large-sized amphora will need to be left to set to harden for a while before the base can be applied. Then when rigid enough, they can be turned upside down and supported in a chock made for supporting a structure without damaging the shape.
A little bit of cloth, and over there, as I say, normally done with two of us, down through the neck of the chock, down, 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 very gently.
The base can then be built up using what's called the coiling method, where strips of clay are layered and then the layers are moulded together to smoothen the visible seams. People would often use a scraper made for smoothing the clay as it's turning on the wheel.
This is a sort of slightly high risk point in the process. One amphora ready to go.
but this can also just be done manually with your thumbs if the appearance doesn't matter much, which was the case much of the time. You can see by looking at many ancient amphora that were obviously quickly made and not much care went into the final appearance, as long as they were functional. The frequent lack of care of the final appearance was due to the jars being mass-produced for shipping on an industrial scale, and many were only meant to be used once and then discarded. They were like the cardboard boxes or plastic bottles of the ancient world, and one place that really shows this in quite an astonishing way is Monte Testaccio, an artificial hill in central Rome that is made up almost entirely of Roman clay vessels. The hill measures around 1 kilometre in circumference and around 36 metres high, and contains the remains of an estimated 53 million amphorae. So yeah, amphorae were cheap, easy to produce, and treated similar to how we use plastic bottles in the modern age. The clay vessels would then be fired in a kiln, transforming them into the hard ceramic vessels. Most people are familiar with traditional small kilns, but these Roman amphora kilns were large, made to fit many amphorae each, as a single firing process would take days, often over a week. And to keep up with demand, they must have had many amphorae kilns firing all day every day, similar to how we have plastic bottles being made in factories all day every day. Now on to how they were treated and sealed. If the amphora is required for dry goods like wheat or nuts, for example, then it is now ready to use without any further treatment. But terracotta is a porous, breathable material, so it's not currently suitable to hold liquids. For holding liquids, the inside of an amphora would be coated with either pine resin or conifer pitch.
You'll sometimes find resin that's really runny and fresh, and it's super sticky and very soft, all the way to the other end of the spectrum, which is these really hard nodules. Now, all of this stuff can be used, you just kind of process it a little bit differently.
This is like a natural waterproof glue that has many uses, but with a more liquid consistency, it can easily be brushed on or swirled around to coat the desired surface of the vessel. When it's fully set and hardened, this resin coating would make the terracotta walls impermeable to liquids and would make it now suitable for transporting liquids like wine and olive oil. When it comes to sealing the top of the jars, Romans used a variety of stoppers to seal amphorae depending on the goods inside and the distance they were travelling. Most common stoppers were made of cork, wood or clay, and sometimes sealed further with pine resin, as the resin also makes an extremely effective glue. This was usually enough to make a completely airtight seal. At times the stopper was further wrapped with fibres or leather tightly to the neck to ensure the stopper stayed secure throughout transportation. The lip around the opening at the top was also specifically designed for tying the seal securely to the neck, and if you look, you'll see it on almost every ancient amphora. It's one of those things you won't be able to unsee now. It was about as common as screw caps on bottles are today. So that's basically the full process from a slab of clay to a sealed container suitable for shipping wine across the seas. I hope this has helped show that every part of the design of an ancient amphora had a purpose, and every time we find these jars in a shipwreck is just more evidence of the sophisticated ancient supply chain that existed thousands of years ago. The next time you look at a modern shipping container, remember the Romans were doing the exact same thing 2,000 years ago with a far smaller population than we have today. They just did it with clay, tree resin, and incredible ingenuity. If you learned something new, please subscribe to the channel and consider supporting my Patreon. Thank you for watching and have a great day.